The Braves are making a mistake by relying on Jose Suarez and Martín Pérez instead of Didier Fuentes and JR Ritchie. Let's talk about it. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today, your source for daily news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby, award-winning baseball writer and podcaster. You can follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball. You can find all my written work, bravestoday.com. That's the Braves Today Substack, as this is both a podcast and a newsletter. We're proudly part of the Believe Podcast Network and presented to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app or go to fanduel.com to get started. We got the news on Spencer Strider yesterday morning, and a little bit lost in all of the different stuff that was written and put on social media and everything about what happened with Spencer, which we all broke down on a podcast, on a live show yesterday afternoon. It's back in your podcast feeds if you missed it. Is the fact that immediately after Walt Weiss told the media about what happened with Spencer Strider, what was going on, the initial course of action for the Braves was to stay the course. They were going to use Didier Fuentes as a reliever for the first 2 weeks of the season, use him in long relief as the long man out of the pen, with the intention of sending him back to Gwinnett after the season opening stretch of 13 games in 13 days. Mark Bowman said that Jose Suarez or Martín Pérez will step into the fifth starter role. And as of now, or as of yesterday, I guess, there was no plans to make Didier Fuentes or JR Ritchie really the fifth starter. And I think that's a mistake. And I want to talk about it. Because apparently part of the reason they want to keep Fuentes as a reliever is to keep stretching him out. That he is not prepared to be a standard length starting pitcher on opening day. And, okay, if that's legitimately the course of action that you feel is correct, his pitch count, the most pitches he's thrown in an outing in spring, he has 4 official outings now, was on Monday when he threw 65 pitches. If you believe he's not ready to be a starter, okay. That doesn't mean that Jose Suarez needs to be the starter. The way that I kind of see it right now, with Strider going on the injured list, you have 1 rotation spot that's available. And then in the bullpen, you have 2. And, because right now the bullpen, Iglesias, Robert Suarez, Dylan Lee, Tyler Kinley, Aaron Bummer, Joel Payamps. That's 6 spots right there. You have 2 spots left. And there's 2 different ways to handle those final 2 spots. The first one is kind of what they're doing, right? Didier Fuentes is 1 reliever. And then either Jose Suarez or Martín Pérez, one of them is in the rotation and one of them is in the bullpen. But there's a better way to do this. What if, and hear me out, what if you put JR Ritchie in the rotation and you put Jose Suarez as a long man in the pen with Didier Fuentes? There's pros and cons here, clearly. We can go over all this real quick. I do think from a depth perspective, this still does what you want to do, right? Something that Alex Anthopoulos has talked about, and whether or not people like it, a thing the Braves are going to continue to do is try to prioritize depth to get through a regular season. Jose Suarez is out of options. You need to keep him on the 26-man roster, or else you could potentially lose him on waivers. That happened earlier this winter, right? They tried to put him on waivers to pass him through, like around Christmas, and the Orioles snagged him. And then when they put him on waivers like a week and a half later, the Braves got him back. So put Suarez as the long man in your pen. Martín Pérez, they already told him he wasn't going to make the opening day roster, and he already agreed to stay with the organization. From a logistical standpoint, the deadline where he could opt out of his deal has passed. The first deadline has passed. 5 days before opening day. That's done. Opening day is tomorrow, technically, because there's a night game. It's like Giants versus Yankees on Netflix or something like that. So, put Martín Pérez in the minors. Keep Fuentes and Suarez in your pen. Make JR Ritchie the fifth starter. Now, there are downsides to this. I think downside number one here is JR Ritchie has plenty of weapons, right? He's a 5-6 pitch kid. He didn't get a ton of whiffs during spring training. A lot of his, other than that outing, that relief outing against the Red Sox, where he was pitching late in the game and it was mostly minor leaguers. So I don't know if he would immediately be successful. But even when he wasn't getting a ton of whiffs, he was getting a ton of ground balls. And he has enough tools to at least make it through a lineup 2 or maybe 3 times. He has plenty of pitches he can throw. And I think that's the argument to have him in the rotation over Fuentes, is Didier Fuentes is really fastball slider. He threw his splitter at 20% usage yesterday. He hasn't thrown the curveball once in spring training. He may not be planning on using that this year. And so he's a 2.5 pitch pitcher. The splitter is promising. It's not there yet. Can he survive as a 2.5 pitch pitcher? They didn't know if Spencer Strider could survive as a 2.5 pitch pitcher, so they put him in the bullpen and let him earn his way into the rotation. That's the plan with Fuentes. The other upside of doing this, of putting JR Ritchie as the number 5 starter to open the season, is that unlike Didier Fuentes, JR Ritchie is PPI eligible. Remember, the rules here on prospect promotion incentive is you need to be you need to be on 2 of the 3 qualifying lists for top 100 prospects. Ritchie is on 2. Fuentes is only on 1. You have to still have prospect eligibility as you enter the year. Ritchie does. And you have to spend a full year of service time in the majors. There's like a 2-week difference in the length of the season and the number of days you have to be up. So you don't have to have Ritchie in the majors on opening day, but you need to have him pretty quickly. You need to have him within 2 weeks. And given 13 games in 13 days, you would have him on the roster for opening day. Or if not, within a couple days, right? And if you do all of that, and JR Ritchie performs as well as some people think he can, you could get an extra draft pick if he wins Rookie of the Year. Now, currently, Braves Today sponsor FanDuel does not have Ritchie on the board for Rookie of the Year. I reached out to some people, and he would be added to the board if he were announced to be on the opening day roster. So the only reason he's not there now is because they project him to be in the minors, and they don't know when he will come up. If the Braves say he would be on the opening day roster, he would get odds likely later that same day. So the reasons to put JR Ritchie on the roster make a ton of sense. If you wanted to use Didier Fuentes in the rotation, I do think the upside there is obvious as well. His stuff plus is some of the best on the roster in the organization. Again, I mentioned it's like 2.5 pitches. There were really good 2.5 pitches. Theoretically, he could always break out that curveball again. Maybe he does feel comfortable throwing both the gyro slider and the sweeper. He would be at the major league level with the major league pitching coaches and everything. And it did feel like when he was using the splitter on Monday, he was trying to get more comfortable going to it to get outs versus other pitches. So it's not, again, we saw Strider do this. It's not outside the realm of possibility that Didier Fuentes very quickly picks it up and is able to stick in the majors this time. But there's also a little bit of reason to be hesitant about this, that this could go badly. Let's talk about, for both of those guys, what could go wrong or what could happen here, the ramifications of this decision, and what other options you have. We'll do that next, right here on Braves Today. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at IQ Bar, our exclusive snack, hydration, and coffee sponsor. IQ Bar protein bars, IQ Mix hydration mixes, IQ Joe mushroom coffees are the delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel you need to win your day. All of these products packed with clean, delicious ingredients that keep you physically and mentally fit, magnesium, lion's mane, and more. Plenty of plant protein, tons of fiber, no added sugar in the bars. The zero sugar drink mix has electrolytes. The mushroom infused coffee designed for mental clarity, packed with 200 milligrams of natural caffeine. So right now, IQ Bar is offering Braves Today listeners 20% off of all IQ Bar products, including their Ultimate Sampler Pack, plus free shipping. To get your 20% off, text MLB to 64000. That's MLB to 64000. That's MLB to 64000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details. Welcome back to Braves Today, Lindsay Crosby. Let's talk about what could go wrong if you promote Didier Fuentes to the rotation or JR Ritchie to the rotation. And for Fuentes, we've seen what could go wrong, right? We saw last year 13 innings, 20 earned runs. He struck out 12, which is not bad. 13 innings, 12 strikeouts. He walked 6. He got taken deep 6 times. He gave up 6 home runs in 13 innings. Again, he's a different pitcher now than he was last year. He kind of bailed on the sweeper for a gyro slider. His fastball looks to be a little bit better. He's commanding it a little bit better. There's no guarantees that the same thing would happen. But if it did, what would a second unsuccessful call-up do to the psyche of Didier Fuentes? I don't know if it's a big deal. Full disclosure, I've never met Didier Fuentes. I've never talked to him in person. I don't really know a lot about him as a person. I do wonder if they called him up and he struggled again, what would that do to him? Would that be a detriment to him? At a certain point, the continued failure does start to weigh on you. Would it be a second rotation stint that didn't work out for Fuentes? I don't think the issue with Fuentes is like popping his option or anything. Best case scenario, he doesn't go down this year, and you don't use that second option. If you were to send him down before opening day, you'd use the option there. If you send him down after 2 weeks, you use the option there. I don't think the option's the problem here. I think for him, it is, if he's not successful, what does that do? How does he respond to that? Because it's kind of an unknown. He is a 20-year-old. He'll be 21 a little bit later this year. And he didn't have a ton of time to pitch in the minors last year after his major league stint. His last start in the majors was July 8th. Then that was the 8 runs on 5 hits and 2 walks with 3 homers allowed against the A's in Sacramento. He went down after that, and he appeared the 13th, like 5 days later for Gwinnett. He made 4 total starts for Gwinnett, and the first 2 were not good. 6 2/3 combined with 7 runs on 11 hits. He started to stabilize a little bit. He had 2 decent outings against Memphis and against Durham, and then he went on the injured list with the shoulder. I'm not saying you have to coddle Didier Fuentes. I'm not saying that the number one focus should be, making sure he doesn't feel bad if he's bad or anything. But I'm saying it is a consideration. And I do feel like sometimes as fans, we're guilty of remembering, or I guess of forgetting, that these are human beings too. They're not just numbers on a roster, like they're people. And I guess my time covering the minor leagues, whether it was the old prospect podcast and things like that, kind of helps me sometimes remember that, like, oh, hey, all these things kind of do matter. Like, being put in a position to be successful and having success at a new level does help you mentally, and getting to a new level and getting blasted does hurt you mentally, and you have to find a way to rebound and move on from that. And so I guess that's my concern with Fuentes. Ritchie, it's a little bit different. And I guess that's because he has enough tools that I assume, even if he's not successful right away, he can at least survive. And that's probably not the right stance to take. But I think about this a little bit like I think about Spencer Schwellenbach in 2024. If you look at the first, I want to say it was the first 6 outings. He came up the end of May. The first 6 outings, what took him through the end of June. He had a 5.68 ERA. He was allowing over a hit per inning. And like he kind of got hit around a little bit. He only gave up 4 home runs. He walked like 9 guys, which is uncharacteristic for him for 30 innings. And he just really struggled. And for him, he added some pitches and he had the college experience and everything, and it kind of clicked. And from the beginning of July through the end of the season, he put up a 2.54 ERA. Like, he was fantastic. Struck out more than a guy an inning, allowed I think he allowed like a 4.5 hits per game or something like that. Was much better after that adjustment period. But that's not normal. Can you count on Ritchie to do that? I'm hopeful that he can. I've been told that I'm like grossly optimistic before, so take that with a grain of salt. But the other thing that I think about for Ritchie, the downside to this, is he's not on the 40-man roster. And we've talked before about the Braves sometimes being a little too quick to burn through pitcher options. AJ Smith-Shawver is kind of a great poster child for this. He is entering his final option year this year. And he's due back late in the year from his Tommy John surgery. We've got to figure out what's going to happen here. He's 23 years old. If he comes up in the last month of the season, you have to spend at least 20 days in the minors to officially use the option. If he's back more than 20 days before the season's set to end, the regular season set to end, the Braves need to put him in the bullpen. Because if they send him down to AAA and he spends like 22 days down there, that's his final option year. And next year, you don't have a choice but to carry him at the major league level. And I guess what I'm concerned about is starting that same trend with Ritchie. Didier Fuentes is on his second option year this year. Whenever he gets sent down, if he does, that'll be his second option year at age 21. JR Ritchie's not on the 40-man roster. At this point, it feels like there's no way you could avoid using him this year, right? You're gonna use him at some point in time in 2026. It was easy to see at the beginning of spring training, when you hadn't lost 4 different starters, how theoretically, if injuries worked out for you, you could have waited to promote JR Ritchie until the end of the year. And the last 20 days of the season or whatever, he kept rookie eligibility for 27, and you didn't have to use an option. But if you call him up now, unless he sticks in the rotation, which is possible, unless he sticks in the rotation, though, you're probably going to use one of his options, either if he doesn't work out in the first month or whatever, or if you haven't had any other injuries, which at this point doesn't feel likely, when it's time to bring back Schwellenbach and or Waldrop and Strider's already come back. I mean, you can move things around. You can move a Lopez or a Holmes to the pen and things like that. But for the most part, like, if everything goes right, which does not feel like a guarantee, but if everything goes right, you could see a scenario where you're trying to add 2 or 3 pitchers, maybe even 4, during the course of the season, starting pitchers, and you've got to find room for them. And if Ritchie gets squeezed out at that point. You've already started the clock. You've already used his first option year. Now, I do think with him, it's probably not too early to do it. I think he turns 23 this season. But it's something to keep in mind because the Braves don't have a great track record of not using options too early. So that's kind of the downside there. In just a minute, let's talk about the rest of the options on the market, what else the Braves could do from here as far as signing a guy, other options, or how they might be able to not have to worry about the rotation because they're winning games easily. We'll do that next, right here on Braves Today. Final segment of Braves Today, Lindsay Crosby. You got to figure this out from internally. When you look at the free agent market, it's really poor. By far, Lucas Giolito is the number one name out there. I talked about it a little bit on that live show yesterday. He went 10-4 with a 3.41 ERA last year. The 3.41 ERA is not supported by the inputs, by the peripherals. To go along with that 3.41 ERA, he had a 4.17 fielded independent pitching. He had a 5.06 expected ERA. His strikeout rate was below 20%, a 19.7% strikeout rate, and a 9.1% walk rate. Like, those are in the ballpark of Bryce Elder numbers. Bryce Elder's strikeout rate last year was 19.3%, and he had a better walk rate. His was 7.5%. When you do strikeout minus, strikeout percentage minus walk percentage, strikeout to walk ratio, right? Bryce Elder was at 11.8%. Lucas Giolito was worse, 10.6%. And that's part of the reason why a lot of the projections have Bryce Elder and Lucas Giolito as essentially the same guy this year, right? A lot of the Bryce Elder projections, Zips has him at a 4.38 ERA and a 4.10 FIP. Lucas Giolito, 4.65 ERA, 4.58 FIP. Now, clearly, you're at the point where the Braves can't be picky here. Beggars can't be choosers at this point. If you're going to add an external starter, Lucas Giolito is pretty much it. The questions are, one, is he healthy? Remember, he missed the end of the season last year with a forearm issue. Supposedly, I believe it was John Heyman who put out a text, he looked like he just copied and pasted from Giolito's agent. But Giolito's healthy. He went through a normal offseason throwing program, and it had here's a subset of stats from when he dropped his arm angle or something like that. But there's probably a reason why nobody's signed him yet. Is it the health thing? Are they nervous about the medicals? Is it his financial ask? Because at this point, the season starts tomorrow. If you sign Lucas Giolito right now, if he's signed by the time this podcast goes up, one, I'm going to be annoyed. That's 2 straight days where the podcast is immediately out of date. But if Giolito gets signed today, you probably don't get him in the majors for close to a month. Typically, when these guys sign at the very end of spring training, they've got to go to the minors for a while to get ready. And so, if the Braves do think that the Spencer Strider issue is a short-term thing, and he's going to be back in a month, then if you're getting him and Giolito back at the same time. I'm not saying that's a problem. I'm making the observation. And it still doesn't help you right now. And a lot of the other guys on the who are available in free agency are even worse. Patrick Corbin, a lot of guys are injured. Nestor Cortez is recovering from, I think it was a forearm thing. John Gray has a hip issue and may not pitch again. I think it's that. Or Alex Cobb has the hip issue and John Gray had thoracic outlet or something. Neither guy may pitch again. Tyler Anderson was just released by the Angels. He couldn't make the Angels, so you're going to bring him in to start for us? If that's your options, you might just need to go with your own guys. Like, just go with the internal pieces over going with a free agent who likely wouldn't be ready anyway. But the other thing to think about here is the Braves offense this spring looked to be pretty good. They won the Grapefruit League title. They had the best winning percentage in the Grapefruit League. They cinched that yesterday. So no matter what happens in today's game, they've won that. And I was listening to former MLB player Trevor May do his podcast from Monday. And he talked about there is a correlation between winning in spring training and winning in the regular season. Now, in the last, I think it was 2015 was how far back he went. In the last, 8, 9, 10 years, however long he looked there, one of the biggest outliers between spring performance and regular season performance was the Braves. We were significantly worse in spring training than we were in the regular season. But he did find a correlation between winning in spring and winning in the regular season. And Atlanta's offense this spring looked to be good. I want to say it was a plus 49 run differential heading into today's game. They didn't score the most runs, but they both did pretty well at scoring runs and pretty well at not allowing runs, all in all. And when you look at some of the individual players, right? Matt Olson hit 2 home runs yesterday. Matt Olson looks ready to go. Mike Yastrzemski hit a home run yesterday. He looks ready to go. Drake Baldwin's been hitting the crap out of the ball. Austin Riley has had a really good spring training. Even guys like Eli White, who are having to step up into a bigger role because Jurickson Profar is a dummy. Even Eli White has looked good this spring. And I know that it's process over results, but a lot of the process these guys have had looks really good. Michael Harris looks to have the best batter's eye he's had in his professional career, right? Like, a lot of these guys, the results are good, but the process of how they're getting there is also good. And so the fifth starter stuff matters. It absolutely matters. You can't just ignore what you're doing for the fifth starter. You got to figure that out. But if the offense really is as good as they've looked this spring, it buys you a little more wiggle room. Because part of the issue you had last year, and we saw this in 24 where the offense wasn't great. A lot of the injuries, right? But the pitching staff was phenomenal. And they drug the team to the postseason. And then last year, the reverse. The offense wasn't good. And then when the pitching staff got hurt, the offense was better, but couldn't carry them. Couldn't pull them to the postseason because they were already in a hole and because there was just too many injuries to the rotation. You've got a lot of injuries to the rotation now. You're down 4 starters. And by the way, I checked. No other team in Major League Baseball, and I used the Fangraphs injured list tracker tool. No other team in baseball is going to have more than 4 starters, or it's projected to have more than 4 starters on the IL to start the season. The Braves will have 5, the 4 you've lost and AJ Smith-Shawver. And of the 5, you lost 4 this spring. Those other teams, only 3 teams have 4 guys. The Blue Jays lost 3 of their 4 this spring. I'll give you that. They lost 3 of their 4. The Padres lost 1 of their 4, and it doesn't look like it's going to be a long-term thing. He's probable for opening day. And Arizona lost 2 of their 4 this spring. So, literally, nobody has had as many injuries to their rotation as the Braves this spring. And despite that, maybe it's because I'm grossly optimistic, but I still have a little bit of hope because of what we've seen from the offense, because of how good they've looked. Now, do I think the ceiling of the team is lower until you get these pitchers back? Yes, I do. I think the rotation as constructed now, I have a lot of questions about workload-wise. Can Holmes and Lopez make it to the postseason? Never mind be effective when you get there, right? But having a really good offense again, and not 2023. That's not coming back. You're not hacking PitchCom again. But having a top 10 offense, I think, would go a long way towards giving you some cushion and wiggle room to get a Didier Fuentes and a JR Ritchie adjusted to the majors, getting them comfortable so that you can hopefully go on a run in the back half. This has been Braves Today for Tuesday the 24th. Do me a favor. Please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time on Braves Today.